When I was approached to do Fistful of Dollars, there was no such thing as a spaghetti Western. There were a few Westerns that had been made by Italian companies, a few small ones, but they were never dubbed that particular thing. That came later on. In fact, I think it was the Japanese, they used to call them, in order to segregate the American Westerns from the Italian-made ones. They called the Italian ones macaroni Westerns. And so that's how that came about. In fact, the idea of making a Western in Italy sounded odd, but then it turned out, well, we're going to make it in Spain, and the terrain in Spain it's very much like Arizona in some spots or parts of California. When I was first making A Fistful of Dollars, it was a Western version, a Western remake of Yojimbo, and I always loved Yojimbo, so that's what inspired me to take the project. I always thought at the time, this thing will either do really well or it won't do anything. Probably the latter. I thought this thing's going to really bomb out, but I'm going to get a trip to Italy and Spain. I've never been to either place. It's going to be a fine experience, and if it did something, if the dice came up 7 or 11, it would be just a bonus deal. So I just went and made the trip. Worked the best I could on it. Well, it's true. I did bring a lot of my own equipment. I just bought some jeans. I brought the boots I wore on rawhide and brought mostly wardrobe with me. We picked up a few things in Spain. Unlike an American film or a film anywhere that is on a more modest to high budget, you would have duplicates and triplicates of anything in case something got lost, in case something got damaged. We had nothing. I had one hat. If I lost that hat, I was a goner. There was no way to match up to anything else. So what I did is I took my wardrobe home at night. I took it back to the hotel. I took the hat and the poncho, which we only have one of. The stuff that I brought over had triplicate, but the stuff we bought over there, we didn't. Sergio didn't speak any English, and I didn't speak any Italian when I first went over there. He knew goodbye, and I knew arrivederci, and that's about it. So we had a wonderful woman from Poland who had been working for Constantine Films, and she spoke many, many languages and Italian fluently, and she sort of represented Constantine in Italy. So she interpreted, and her English had been learned by Americans after World War II, so she knew American-style English with all the slangs and what have you.
Baxter's over there. Rojo's there.
A friend of mine in Rome said, oh, they're going to lose the track. They do a guide track there. They don't pay too much attention to it because they're going to loop everything later anyway. So they said, be sure and keep track of any changes you make because they're going to lose the guide track. And they did, sure enough. A year or so later, when I was looping Fistful of Dollars, a few dollars more to come out in this country, I had to go back to my own notes.
I don't like to take money unless I feel I've earned it.
I'd make up a lot of stuff anyway. And we just all kind of do the scenes and whatever the intent was. But you did have to keep track of it because you're going to loop it later.
Too dangerous.
It was so funny because you'd be doing a scene and in your eye line off of one side of the camera or another, you'd see a couple guys back there playing Frisbee or making motions or telling jokes, and you hear people talking, and it's very, very distracting. And I just kind of forged over it. It gave me a reason to concentrate that much more intently, but they just weren't used to the quietness of a set where sound is a very important feature. We were doing very small budget films. This wasn't the high budget Italian film. Fistful of Dollars was a $200,000 film, and that maybe a few dollars more than that, if you'll pardon the pun. But they were very shoestring. They just had German money in it, and Spanish money, and Italian money. And those three entities were constantly arguing with themselves about who would pay what. Sometimes they'd do a shot 3 or 4 times because they were so paranoid. In the early days, they'd do a couple takes because they figured the lab would screw up the first 2 or 3, or somebody would get scratched, or somebody would drop it. It was very haphazard. the efficiency level is certainly not as good as it is with an American crew or a British crew or even Italian crew today. We were shooting in Almeria, and he needs a tree for a hanging tree with a noose on it. He just wanted a tree with a noose, a symbol as I ride by. This is back on Fistful of Dollars. He couldn't get a tree. There was an old tree that was in somebody's yard. It was dead, but it was in somebody's yard. And so all of a sudden, the guy, they go in, he sends a crew in, and they cut the tree down in the guy's yard. Well, the guy comes out the front door and says, "What are you doing, cutting down the tree?" And he says, "Oh, we're from the highway department. This is a danger. This tree might fall on the road, so we're taking it out." And the guy kind of went, "Oh, okay." But that's the kind of creativity he'd use. And we were once shooting in A Few Dollars More, and he wanted a crane. We didn't have a crane. We couldn't afford a crane on these pictures. But the De Laurentiis company had a crane nearby. In the summertime in Spain, they have a Catholic holiday about once a week. There's a different holiday. Well, there was a Catholic holiday coming up. So, and the De Laurentiis company wasn't going to be able to shoot, being an Italian company, a Catholic-oriented group. But Sergio went to the bishop and said, "We're not Catholics. We're a Jewish company, and we're over here shooting this film, and we're not Catholic. So could we film that day?" So the bishop gave his permission. "Sure, you guys can go ahead and film." So we went to De Laurentiis and said, "You can't film, but we're going to film. Can we have your crane?" So he borrowed the crane. It was a great experience to look back on, but at the time it was kind of funny. I mean, now it's very funny.